Hello, my name is Grace Spee. I'm a graphic designer and a third-year master's student from the University of Illinois at Chicago.
Hi, my name is Bansri Thakkar. I am also a graphic designer and a final year master's student at University of Illinois in Chicago.
Today, we will be presenting our project titled Oasis. Oasis is a collaborative virtual reality project which examines the themes of destruction, growth, sustainability, and mindfulness. 10 interactive spaces were developed to encourage participants' engagement with a virtual reality environment and to alleviate the impact of social isolation during the ongoing coronavirus pandemic. This is an ongoing collaboration at the University of Illinois at Chicago involving a team of 10 designers from industrial and graphic design programs. This project was developed in remote collaboration using Unity game engine and collaboration tools to help enable virtual teamwork and help designers mitigate issues related to isolation during the pandemic.
Since time immemorial, shopping malls have served as havens for establishing relationships between multiple individual communities and their consumers, all under a single roof. Many of these malls now stand as a manifestation of localized economic decline. From a design standpoint, the mall is utterly generic and utterly controlled. With its imitation of a street market, the mall cleverly camouflages itself as a public space, one in which to socialize or rest or pass the time as we might in a park or a library or a museum. In that way, the mall itself imitates virtual reality. It is an artificial setting with natural elements to enhance a pseudo-natural new reality of a community gathering space under the mask of consumerism. Today, as the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic has brought the world to a commercial standstill, the economics of malls continue to collapse. Based on this notion, the design team has created a collaborative virtual reality project designed for mental health rehabilitation, which examines the themes of destruction, growth, sustainability, and mindfulness using the metaphor of a desolated shopping mall.
In mono-capitalist societies, mental illness is the third leading cause of life expectancy decline. It has been argued that the capitalist systems that are built to negatively impact participants' mental well-being. The relationship between mental health and economic conditions is often accompanied and sometimes blurred by biological and societal factors. The fact remains that favorable economic conditions are significant contributors to mental well-being. Virtual reality technology has been increasingly useful in therapy as a tool to aid both physical and mental wellness. A meta-analysis conducted by Carl and colleagues show that virtual reality exposure therapy is an effective and equal treatment for anxiety disorders such as social anxiety and post-traumatic stress disorder. There is also extensive evidence showing that virtual reality can enhance control over motor abilities and walking in patients with neurological injuries. The question therefore stands, through art and design, could virtual reality be utilized to start a discursive discourse on consumerism and the pandemic, but also be used to explore mindfulness and mental health?
In Oasis, the design team aimed to connect these evidence-based practices with our design knowledge. Due to the pandemic, the design team has never met in person aside from Grace and myself, who are roommates. Instead, the team worked remotely using virtual reality collaboration software. Ruined and abandoned places are visually and aesthetically fascinating, as such spaces seemed to mimic what many are experiencing during this pandemic.
The designers developed the project with a modular construction approach. Each designer was responsible for a part of the space and would include at least one interaction in that space. Designers submitted proposals on their individual contributions and presented these ideas to the class. After each design was complete, students integrated them into one cohesive scene. The mall model is a 2-story modular construct with a long atrium in the center, with a variety of small shops on either side. Each of the 10 projects contributed by individual designers are located within different structures of the mall. In the center of the atrium is a reflecting pool of the Aquascape Aquarium. Small storefronts lining either side of the aquarium present Regeneration, Next, The Twilight Years, and Escape to Nature. At the north end is a large department store housing Black Friday and the Arboretum. The area intended for congregating opens the Butterfly Garden. Garden Gunner and the large cedar presents the cinema. Escalators at the south end of the mall allows the player to navigate between different levels of the mall.
In Oasis, the player navigates an abandoned mall from a first-person perspective. The destruction growth narrative is illustrated with gamified interactions of proximity and collision. Flowers, trees, and other creatures flourish as the player occupies, interacts, and collides with the objects in the mall. In some parts, typography is used to remind the player of simple relaxation techniques. The project uses a majority of imported assets, including the mall model, plant objects, decorative materials, and small animals. A large amount of shared assets was purchased from the Unity Asset Store and modified by the designers utilizing programs such as Maya, Rhino, Blender, and Photoshop. Other objects were animated by designers in Cinema 4D. The textures that created the decayed nature of the mall used assets from Quixel Megascans library. The virtual mall offers no interface or directions for the player. It is a self-exploratory space with interactive zones in different stores of the mall. In some environments, GUI is used in the form of text to guide the player through the interaction in the room. Input interactions such as button clicks and key presses are used in different ways. Collision and proximity are also recurring interactions in the project, such as initiating sound or uncovering a poetic narrative. Oasis was developed with cross-platform adaptability and was intended to be exported to Cave 2 hybrid reality environment and the Electronic Visualization Laboratory at the University of Illinois at Chicago. A 320-degree panoramic environment, surround audio system, and an optical tracking system.
Designers worked collaboratively to generate sub-themes that related to the overall concept of post-capitalism and the pandemic. Designers were not confined to choose a single theme, and as such, many scenes bridge multiple sub-themes. The following sections detailed each of the sub-themes and its subsequent projects. The reclamation of space by nature is central to Oasis's narrative. The Arboretum hands control of nature to the player, allowing them to grow and uproot various plants in order to create their own small therapeutic space. There are 6 spotlights which indicate the player to stand under and observe the environment. The concept utilizes virtual reality as a medium to bridge the participation of the player who is likely confined to a room due to the pandemic. A small set of motions and interactions give a sense of breathing, caring, nurturing, and an opportunity to associate with beings of nature, which the player may not see in their day-to-day life. Regeneration uses conditional design approach, which is popularized by designers Luna Maur, Jonathan Puckey, Roel Reuters, and the artist Ido Paulus to encourage players to focus on the process of creation rather than the outcome. Upon entering the scene, bright green text welcomes the player into the room, prompting the player to click and plant different natural elements. With the architectural structure of the structure as the canvas and natural elements as paintbrushes, players are invited to engage in activities to claim the space from the symbol of consumerism, meditating about how the past failures give chances for the purest form of life.
Garden Gunner implements a mechanic seen in many popular first-person shooters as a way of gamifying transformative interaction, giving the player an engaging and rewarding way of bringing new life and vitality to the space. Upon entering the space, the player will see a large gun at the center of the room. The gun serves as a metaphor, symbolizing how something that is thought to bring destruction can also be used as a device for change and rehabilitation. Each shot fires a plant from the gun and thus brings new life to the space. Next explores the flip side of the consumerism narrative by examining the inexhaustible workload of a designer in a capitalist market. The player enters into the scene space through a first person interaction. When the controller passes over a raised square at the entrance, the camera is shifted into a third person view. When interacting with the greater scene as a whole, the idea of consumerism, overabundance, and consumption of media are displayed.
Mental health is a topic that has been ripe for virtual reality exploration, particularly in the time of COVID-19 and telehealth services. Butterfly Garden focuses on creating a therapeutic space for the player. Upon entering the Butterfly Garden space, the room is noticeably empty. To the left of the room, a glowing light offers refuge to the player. The light features moving butterflies and text that reads, "Step here," inviting the player to interact with it. Once the player collides with the text, the environment immediately transforms. A lush meadow appears. In a time when many are working from home and stuck indoors, this butterfly garden provides a soothing outdoor space where the player can take a moment to relax and remember the beauty of nature, even if it is virtual.
Some designers choose to test the limits of virtual reality by creating temporary reliefs for the player. The Twilight Years encourages the player to travel past the fading veneer of consumerism to an ethereal, dreamlike realm. The player approaches an old electronics store rife with overgreen plants and dated technologies. Special attention was paid to the graphic identity of the store, combining 80s aesthetics with dreamy vaporwave typography and design. Through a collision teleportation interaction, the player can step through a glowing TV screen to another world. The concept of an other world is found in almost every mythology and belief system in the world, far from the materialization of current Western culture. Utilizing game level designs, the Twilight Years was created as a response to the feeling of needing to escape from this reality. Escape to Nature also utilizes a teleportation interaction by creating an entire other world in an abandoned storefront. The sound of turbulent wind and snowflakes appear as the player walks closer towards the space. The mall as a backdrop symbolizes the destination to satisfy an addiction for new products. Looking into the storefront, the player is greeted by a transitional space called the Engaba, usually seen in traditional Japanese architecture. As the player enters and navigates the space, he is transported into the middle of a frozen lake during a snowstorm with towering mountains in the distance. Escape to Nature aims to embrace minimalism, contrasting the commodification of the mall with the empty serenity of the desolate frozen lake.
Consumption as a form of nostalgia is a vital part of Black Friday. Upon entering the store, the player hears echoes of the past, the shoppers, the music, and the chatter via a collision interaction. The store itself is wrecked and grim. As the player walks, foliage erupts and a poetic narrative is revealed. As they walk, more and more of the poetic narrative is about the Gurren transfer is shown. The typographic layout in the store mimics signage on shelves at different heights. The text is constantly fighting for the player's attention and forces the player to look at other aisles before they are even done with the first. The typography reminds the player of malls being the architects of our false desires, wanting one to take in more than what they came in for. Aquascape Aquarium takes inspiration from the real-life ruined New World Mall building in Bangkok, Thailand, and invites the player to visit an entire marine ecosystem thriving in the ruins. As the player descends into the aquarium, located underneath the mall, the player can observe fish tanks separated by glass. The player can then choose to reunite the ecosystem by colliding into the tank, thus breaking the glass and freeing the fish. Left to rubble, the scene calls to question the isolated worlds that we are currently living in due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Nearly every designer on the team chose to work with the COVID new normal into their scenes, given that the pandemic shaped the very fabric of how our team had to develop the work on Oasis. As the player enters the cinema within this abandoned mall, the screen displays videos of life before and during the COVID-19 pandemic. Clicking on the cassette player next to the movie theater allows the player to toggle through the collection of videos. Just as shopping malls have been struggling in the previous years to find relevance in an increasingly internet-based shopping economy, movie theaters have lost relevance in a market where streaming has taken over.
The COVID-19 pandemic may have forever changed the way people work and collaborate. Designers in particular are uniquely situated to innovate and adapt to these new challenges. In Oasis, the design team experimented with virtual reality art and created virtual environments in response to the isolation brought on by the pandemic, the mental health struggles, and rampant consumerism, exposing a desire to return to a simpler, more natural way of being. With the devastating effects of the pandemic, the virtual reality setting may be considered in place of the physical reality of public gathering spaces. Oasis aims to expand the experience of physical exhibition design by creating a virtual exhibition. Working collaboratively in VR allowed the team to bring life and joy to each other while being in isolation. Overall, the team's aim was to advance the position of virtual reality art in the field of art and design, creating something meaningful during a period of uncertainty and change. Oasis was not created without significant challenges. Many of the team members were new to virtual reality, 3D modeling, and coding. Additionally, game engines such as Unity have a steep learning curve. The team utilized Unity Collaborate to upload and download project updates and combine VR scenes. As is typical of working with a large team, communication was essential to avoid technical mishaps. This only increased collaboration and unity between team members as the more senior members of the team stepped up to aid the team's instructor to help the newer members. The future of Oasis, ironically, may depend on the future of the pandemic itself. Ideally, Oasis will be exhibited in the future in the Cave 2 hybrid reality environment at the University of Illinois at Chicago. Currently, Oasis is exhibited online at the Video Game Art Gallery's digital exhibition space, where all 10 VR environments can be seen through video and high-quality production stills. It is the design team's hope that the digital exhibition will allow Oasis to reach a wider international audience, igniting a conversation about art and design in virtual reality, as well as allow meaningful connections to form, connections that may feel lacking in our current physical realities. Thank you so much for attending and listening to our presentation. We look forward to any questions or comments that you may have.
Thank you.